Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our workshops on Tax Hacks 2020 on this November morning. So, as we all are as the tax season is nearing, and we all are planning to start saving our taxes and submit our investment proofs to our employers. So, we thought of conducting this webinar wherein we can help you with various avenues and various aspects of saving taxes, and it will not only help you saving taxes but also create a wealth over a period of time. So we have also covered the types of tax regimes that have come of late, and we will take you through one by one. So today we have Mr. Kamraju Mutyala. Good morning, sir,
Good
and
morning.
welcome to our workshop today. Mr. Kamraju happens to be the payroll and the audit head for Nokia. And we have Mr. Deepak Jasani. Good morning, sir. Welcome. Mr. Jasani is our head of equities and research. So welcome, gentlemen. And with this, I would like to start the workshop here.
So thank you, Pratibha, and thank you, Deepak.
So,
good morning.
Yeah. So Pratibha, can you start the slides?
Yeah.
Are you able to see the screen, sir?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you able to see about medium and long-term goals?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. Fantastic. So every time
So
when we are planning to, yes sir.
Yeah. So basically, the topic of this webinar is tax hack. Now, what do you mean by hack? Now, the definition of hack is to cut or chop something with short, strong blows. So basically, how can you cut your tax liability? But we are not just looking at cutting the tax liability, we are also looking to build wealth over time. So now, when you indulge in tax hacking, there are 3 or 4 ways in which you can sort of target your wealth accumulation. Yeah, Pratibha, can you take it forward?
Yes, of course. So as we mentioned that we've got several long-term, short-term goals in life. So it can be starting from buying a car or going on a vacation to have your retirement corpus, to have your own settlement, and to continue a great standard of living. And then comes medium-term goals also, like education of children and family support and purchase of home. So we are just trying to mix and match our investment avenues with these long-term, short-term, and medium-term goals. So we have this tax hack toolkit. So Kamraju sir, since you manage payrolls and since you look after audits, so you would be the right person over here to give your inputs that when we talk about investments, when we talk about as an employee or as a person who's associated with an organization, so when we talk about making investments, so we make investments primarily to save tax, but we foresee that this saving can also be a avenue to create a long-term wealth. So be it an option of ELSS, that's equity linked savings scheme, or a tax saving fixed deposit, or a EPF, PPF, or a national pension system. So these are some avenues that we have shortlisted. So I'm sure, sir, you are the right person to give your input here. There are many other options, is it, wherein a person can invest and save taxes. But these are several specific avenues wherein a person can also create a wealth. Is it, sir?
Yes, Pratibha. Yes, definitely. I can say these are the best options for the all Indian employee segment as well as the business segment. Like you mentioned, ELSS and tax saving fixed deposits, tax bonds, and little if you add health point of view, you can come health come tax point and LIC, ULIP, and PPF, EPF. All these are the tax savers, and presently the both Income Tax Act and several subsidiary acts are encouraging the each and every person not only to tax is save and as well as the investment point of view. And also as a common man, you need to always think, don't think for the 30% tax too. You need to think how to save the 70% further reinvestment or regeneration, how to yield the 30%, that called as a tax square off. So most of the people simply pay the 30% tax and they are enjoying the 70% corpus, but that is not the right way for the investment pattern. So there is a technique called as a we can say finance tool, uh, tax square off. So instead of the spending the 70%, you reinvest the 70%, get yield of the 30% back to your pocket. That means you are back to 100%. So that is what we need to understand the people. I think Deepak, any views, whatever?
Yeah, so basically, these are the 7 best products that we feel
Yeah,
will help you to save taxes and also to create wealth. Now, there are pluses and minuses of each one of them, which we will shortly go into.
yeah,
But broadly, now for taxpayers, I think what is more important is to inculcate discipline. Whether the discipline is by way of first deciding what is the amount that you want to save and then spend the rest, or whether it is doing diligently, regularly, and reviewing your investments time and again.
yeah,
So now, in case most of us, most of the attendees would be young, and they have a long way to go ahead in terms of their working life and in terms of their potential to create wealth. So what is important is to first create be aware that what is the possibility of saving taxes and creating wealth, number one. Number two is to make goals, your financial goals at various time periods over your life. So each one has a different kind of upbringing, family setup, background, etc. So your goals will not be uniform. Everyone will have a different goals. Then you have to prioritize. Now, whether you want to spend lavishly now and later on earn and save, or whether you want to have a balance between the two. So then you have to decide as to what are your goals, at what points or what points in time you want to achieve those goals, and what is the kind of risk that you are willing to take to achieve those goals. And you have to give time to your investments to compound, so to grow, to accumulate. Now, compounding, as Einstein said, is the 8th wonder of the world. So you cannot just invest in one instrument and keep reviewing the returns every day and withdraw it in the second year, third year, and then again put it into some other instrument. That way, you will not get the benefit of compounding. So for compounding, you need to first shortlist the best instrument available as per your risk profile and return expectation, and then let it grow. And then once you have done this, then you roll out your plans and you keep reviewing your plans over time. So this will help you in case your plan is off track for some time. Then maybe you can make your adjustments, sell some investments, and redirect them to some other avenues, and then again carry on with your plan. So that is also very important. Reviewing your investments every 6 months or 12 months is also crucial, so that you know that your investments are on track to achieve your financial goals which you have set ahead. So broadly, this is how you will have to develop this attitude. We will all have to develop this attitude of being aware and being disciplined and setting our goals and uh, trying to achieve those goals as per the original timelines. So this will help us to sort of have a very smooth road toward the accumulation of wealth. Yeah.
So basically, Deepak,
Absolutely, sir.
I agree with you, Deepak. For every investment, there is a proper regular review and correction is required, not blind correction. So that is what you mentioned. And as you, Deepak, Pratibha, in your first slide, it is very good. You mentioned the goals, as Deepak mentioned, short term, long term, medium term, so that everyone has a different financial commitments and goals, and as per the geography, as per their age group, as per the family background. So these goals may vary from person to person, but ultimately all these super 7 is required. Okay, so that is what, like short term, like you mentioned, the short term, most of the people are not clearly understand what is the short term car and everything. So the car means when you're spending the car, the tax related question under section 17, like a company leased car, maybe car expenses, fuel and reimbursement, all these are the we can save a tax. Similarly, vacation, LTA, LTC, all these
Yes.
recreation, home trip allowances, all these are the main topics. Each and everywhere you will get a tax exemptions in all the factors of the short term, medium term, long term. So that are the main thing. So any person spend the expenditure, you need to think for the investment and tax point of view. Okay.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. So, with that, we also have tried to include this, so the tax regime. So, in the recent budget, when the finance minister had announced a new tax regime, so there was
Yeah.
quite some kind of a confusion amongst the population that, what should we do? Should we continue saving and investing and take a tax benefit, or should we let go investments and pay away the taxes, take the exemptions, and not take the exemptions? So there was a lot of unrest and there was a lot of confusion amongst a lot of people. So would request you to throw some light over here of, what do you think about this new tax regime which has come in? How do you think that, a new tax regime is going to be a better option if someone is not willing to save and just let go on taxes? Or would you still recommend going ahead with the older tax regime so that people continue making some corpus for their future, not only save taxes but create wealth over a period of time?
Yeah. So, Pratibha, basically, the in the financial year 2020 to 2021,
Hmm. Hmm.
the new tax regime is introduced. If you see, we heard since last couple of years, maybe more than 5 years, the government is working on the new DTC direct tax code. So I can say
Hmm.
this new tax regime is a beginning of the direct tax code. So we may expect a lot of tax codes shortly in the next couple of financial years. But
Okay.
since we have a option of the comparison of the between the new regime and the old regime, so old regime is a legacy and what we are following, but new regime is the very simple, straight, and zero effects, and no deductions, no investments, higher tax benefit, and all these very simple filing point of view, calculation point of view, computation point of view, everything is very simple. They know, and also there are a lot of attractions in the new tax regime. Whereas old regime is a conditional basis, these are the available, like Chapter 60 is applicable, Section 80C is applicable, Section 10 is applicable, HRA. So in these cases, so everyone, my suggestion in this regard, each and everyone to compare what is the tax liability under old regime as well as the new regime. Accordingly, you need to
Hmm.
decide what is the best. And also, when you are calculating the comparison between old and new tax regime, you need to think for the future also, because once you
Right.
started a new regime, you cannot change back to old regime. That is the
Old
for the
regime.
commercial point of view. For employees, yes, there is a flexibility. You can change old to new or new to old every year. But obviously, you need to consider. So these are the things. But of course, both are having the pros and cons, and that is what I can tell you between the old regime and the new regime. And in the old regime, definitely you will get a HRA exemption, standard deduction, and Section 80C, LIC, investments, pattern, PPF, EPF, education loan. and all the sphere of carry forward section 80C, house rent rebates, LTA, you will get the all the benefits in the old regime. Of course, against you will get a tax brackets. But in case of new tax regime, very simple, no deductions, no HRA, no LTA, no 17, no perquel, simple. That's why the rates are little lesser than the old regime. The new regime rates are less than the, because you will not get the any benefits. So that is the fundamental motivation from the finance minister. Okay.
Right.
Here, I would like to add here, basically the new system is very simple. But the old system makes you more disciplined towards savings. So now if you are on your own discipline, if you don't need an external force to make you disciplined, you can opt for new rates in case that is more suitable to your taxable income. But in case you are not very disciplined about savings and you need some compulsion to do savings, then I think you should stick to the old system, because that the benefit of that you will realize over time. Currently, because of the new opting for the new system, you may have more money in hand, which if you are going to fritter away, then the wealth accumulation may not happen. So it all depends on how disciplined you are as a saver or an investor. If you are disciplined, then you can opt for either, depending on which is more favorable. But if you are not disciplined, then you can stick to the old system. Yeah.
And Pedro, one more point you mentioned here, last point, LTC cash voucher. Of course,
Right.
just a few weeks back in the month of October, Finance Minister announced the press note, but still LTC cash voucher is not presented to Parliament House and not approved. We are waiting for the bill. But the proposal on this LTC voucher is because due to COVID, most of the people are not availing the LTA or LTC benefit. So that's why for the more economical generation point of view, cash generation point of view, or tax benefit point of view, the finance minister were proposing the new tax savings to the employee segment, both of central government as well as the private sector. So every employee can spend 3 times of the LTA limit, so that you will get the benefit. And all these expenditure should be on the GST, more than 12% GST applicable the category items. So like there are some items GST less than 12%. Those are not eligible for the claim of the LTC cash. So the person should spend more than 12% GST category, and all the payment should be digital payment mode, not cash mode, and invoice should be GST invoice. So any employee spending this money between the October 12th to 31st March, they can claim this benefit. But shortly we are expecting the bill in this regard. But everyone should keep the
So
bill.
you mean to say that it can be any expenditure that an employee makes. So say for example, an employee's limit is 10,000 rupees for LTA. He's been given a window of 3 times, so he can spend up to 30,000.
Yes.
On purchase of a goods or services which has GST, and the payment is done digitally.
Digital mode, and once you spend the 3 times of the your entitlement, you will get 1/3 of the entitlement into LTA deduction. That means if you spend 30,000, we will consider only 10,000 in our taxable income. So we'll deduct the taxable income 1/3 of the your expenditure, subject to maximum 36,000 per person. Suppose in your family there are 3 people, so you will get 36,000 per person into 3. So there are in some companies LTA maybe 5 lakhs, but we cannot give the 5 lakhs. We can give only 3 persons at the rate of 36,000. So this is the formula we are expecting.
Okay.
But all these are goods and services, 12%.
Okay, sir. So that's fair. So I think we now have a fair idea of the older and the new tax regime, and I'm sure even our audience must be confident about choosing which one to go ahead with. So quickly coming to the Super 7. So starting with ELSS, happens to be equity linked saving scheme, more like a mutual fund, wherein up to 80% of the investment is invested in equities. Funds are invested into equities, and it is subject to market risk. So since it happens to be an equity related scheme, it also happens to be the shortest lock-in period, which is of 3 years. So normally other investment instruments are for 5 years and above, but this happens to be only and only for 3 years. So if you see that 3 years of your tenure is completed, you can always take a maturity. So Deepak sir, since you possess a equity expertise, I would like to have an input from you over here. The kind of returns equity is always giving us over a period of time, not in terms of a short-term return, but in terms of long-term also. So can we consider ELSS as a long-term investment which can help us create wealth enormously?
Yeah. So ELSS is a good option for people who number one, who are afraid to invest in equities. So basically, this is the first step for most people to get into equities, because this is a compulsory kind of an investment to get tax benefit. And so the returns that you get on the ELSS investment is on a net amount which is much lower. So you have to gross up the returns, which will be much higher than what you typically get. One advantage of ELSS is that the fund manager does not have to sort of worry about redemptions every now and then. So he could have longer duration or horizon to invest in stocks. So now the lock-in is also quite limited, only 3 years. Ideally, we recommend people to do SIP in ELSS so that you get advantage of entry over number of months or quarters or years. The only disadvantage of SIP in ELSS is that every SIP is logged in for 3 years. So your exit, once you stop your SIP, your exit will sort of continue till 3 years from that day, because the last SIP will be logged in for 3 years from the date of the investment. Now, despite the fund manager having the liberty to invest over a longer period of time without worrying about redemptions, we have noticed that the returns that ELSS schemes provide are mixed. All of them don't perform similarly. So we at HDFC Securities have a system of coming out with a reckoner, a lump sum reckoner and a SIP reckoner. So that can be looked into, and from there one can pick and choose what kind of ELSS schemes you want to invest in.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
Yeah.
So with that, we also understand that investment in ELSS happens to be exempted to an extent of 1,50,000, and redemption is also exempted, but it invites long-term capital gains. If it is if the profits or if your growth is exceeding rupees 1 lakh, is that understanding correct, sir?
Yes, under section 80C, this will be part of the 1,50,000, including the other patterns. Yeah, you're right.
Right, sir.
Yeah, and also
So
Deepak,
with
one more advice from your side to the audience. In the investment portfolio, what is the reasonable percentage for the ELSS? Can anyone invest up to 20% of the portfolio or 50% of the portfolio? How much you can invest in this ELSS? Do you have any idea?
So this will depend on whether you have equity exposure other than ELSS also. In case you have equity exposure other than ELSS, then you will have to take that into account. So initially, everyone will have to do a risk profiling of themselves and return expectations. So in case you are either an aggressive investor, you are moderate, or a conservative investor. So if you are a conservative investor, then your overall equity exposure should be limited to say between 25 to 40-45%.
40%. Okay.
But if you are an aggressive investor, you can go anywhere up to say 65 to 80% of your financial savings into equity. So first step is risk profiling and return expectation setting. And then if you already have other equity investments, then that has to be clubbed with the ELSS to come to an amount which you can invest maximum into ELSS.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Right, so with that, we come to tax saving fixed deposit, a very traditional and a debt-ridden asset class, considered to be a very safe investment. As if I had to compare that with the ELSS or a ULIP or a direct investment in equities, rest of interest rates are absolutely guaranteed. If it says that I'm going to give you a 5% rate of return, it is going to be 5% on records, and it gives you a tax benefit within the limit of ATC to an extent of 1,50,000. Now the point here is your investment is exempted from tax up to a limit of 1,50,000, but the maturity, the earning that you have from the rate of interest happens to be taxable. So just wanted an input from here, sir, from you, sir, that would you recommend this investment instrument to the audience?
Basically, in the market, we have a lot of investments better than these tax saving fixed deposits, especially in employment category. We are getting the 8.5% in the PF. Similarly, like ELSS and all this, we are getting little bit better. And these tax saving FD, I think between 5 to 6%, not much then. So if you compare the yield, little lesser. But as a safer side point of view, security, guaranteed, and no risk, zero risk. That point of view, this bond is this tax saving fixed deposit is little advisable. And maybe I can tell you, not more than 10 to 20% portfolio you can spend in this tax saving fixed deposit, not much. But ultimately, it is a part of the section. And what are the interest and everything that will be tax free.
Thanks.
For conservative investors, this may be one of the options. But once you have sort of fulfilled your EPF and voluntary PF, so once you have sort of, the only thing is in PF and VPF, your lock-in is much longer. So once you have decided that you are going to allocate X amount to EPF and VPF, the balance for conservative investors this is one option for them, because post-tax returns are very low. Lock-in is also only 5 years. But on a grossing up basis, the return will still be okay.
Yeah. So, Pratibha, in your first slide, you mentioned short-term wealth. For the short-term wealth point of view, this is the best option. Those people can get the liquidity within the 5 years, and they can meet their goals within the 5 years point of view. That medium short-term option purpose, the tax-saving FD will be one of the best conservative.
Sure, sir. Sure. Thank you, sir. So coming to the category of emergency funds, as you know, we discussed in our goal setting, health insurance happens to be a friend who rescues us every time in terms of medical emergency. So, you know, it is always said that the earlier you start, the smaller will be your premium. And there are a lot of variants and riders also available to help you get rid of your health insurance meter growing every now and then. And given the current COVID situation, we also know that it's absolutely unpredictable. So health insurance is something which not only gives you a tax benefit for an investment that you do for yourself and your family, but also for your parents. It does not help you create a wealth, of course, but it is something which actually helps you in taking care of your emergencies, especially your medical emergencies.
Yes, Pradva. Yes, this health is always you're right, and sometimes nowadays the present pandemic crisis, everyone is focusing on the health, and nowadays health is better than the wealth. But as you mentioned, in the health case, there is a exemptions under Section 80D, part of the Supra 6A, you will get. If you take the insurance for you, basically the insurance exemption under two buckets. Bucket number one, if you take any health insurance policy, the premium amount for you, spouse, children, then you will get the 25,000 rupees per annum. In case if you extended the policy or premium for your parents and senior citizen subject to, then you will get another 50,000 rupees, total 75,000 rupees. You will get the deduction. This is a deduction. So this amount will be deducted from your taxable income from your salary. So this is the one. And definitely there is no return in this case, but only deduction.
Right. Right, sir. So, as a prominent question, what normally audience come across when we talk about health insurance is that they already have some or the other health insurance cover from their employer.
Yeah.
So a lot of time, if they go ahead with a top-up plan or a separate add-on plan, maybe for their parents or their other dependents, so even that is given a tax benefit, the deduction.
Yeah. Yes, Pratibha, yeah, definitely. This also gives you additional tax benefit. And employer, generally in every company, employer giving the tax benefit up to certain limit, maybe 5 lakhs, 2 lakhs, 10 lakhs. But today, the type of the cost health insurance is very, very costly. Sometimes your
Yes,
employer insurance may not be sufficient. So that's why
yes, sir.
it is always better to take additional policy from your pocket. So definitely, whatever the cost you are spending for the premium, you will get the income benefit under Income Tax Act, Section 80D. That's
Right, sir.
you will get it.
Right, sir.
One additional point here is that the sooner you take the top-up policy, the better it is. In the sense, it will give you some sort of a habit.
Yeah,
You may change your companies. You don't know today you are working with X company. Tomorrow you'll go to Y company.
yeah,
Whether that Y company also has a similar medical benefits, you don't know that. So some sort of a top-up facility, whatever amount you think is suitable based on your health and your family's health, you should take. And maybe going forward, you can increase the top-up amount depending on your income levels and your health conditions.
Yes, sir. So the earlier we start, the better it is. So with that, sir, I come to life insurance and ULIPs. Life insurance is considered to be a must-have investment in your portfolio. So even if you purchase it, even if you purchase a life insurance, be it a term plan or a money back or an endowment, though it is giving you a tax benefit within ATC, but also look at the benefit that it gives you over a period of time. So, certainly a person cannot be replaced by the money that comes back from insurance, but at least it takes care of those financial needs, which can be met to a certain extent. So that's where life insurance is quite important. And then comes ULIP. ULIP is more like, I would say, Deepak sir would be the best person to explain us on ULIP, because it is more of an equity exposed investment, and over a period of time it gives fantastic returns. Is it, sir?
Yeah. So basically, at the initial stage of your career, when you just joined a company, or maybe you spent 3, 5, 7 years, you got married, you have one kid probably. At that point, life insurance requirement is paramount, especially if your spouse is not working. Because in case something untoward happens to you, then they have something to fall back on. As you grow older, as your income rises and your accumulated wealth also rises, maybe the requirement of insurance reduces, because then there is something to fall back on, your savings or accumulated wealth. And within insurance, I think term plans are the best. Of course, most people feel you don't get a return of your premium, so why should you go for term plans? But I think that is not the way one should look at. They are one of the cheapest way to insure your life. Now coming to ULIP, again, ULIP is a combination of insurance and savings. So it is definitely a very good option for people who want to invest in equity markets or debt markets along with having an insurance, so that you don't have to track 2 or 3 different investments and such like. So for them, it's a very good instrument. Here the only issue is about the expenses. In the initial years, the expenses are high. Of course, if you go on a direct platform, then probably the expenses are lower. But instead of some people prefer to take term plan plus mutual fund investment separately rather than going for ULIP. But for there, you will have to sort of spend time and effort in tracking them and making payments separately and such like. So if you have that kind of time or a skill set, then you can look at that option also. But otherwise, ULIP also remains a good option.
A very lucrative option, I would say so.
Yeah, it is a good option. Basically, because the investment goes into either equities or debt market, you have an option of taking that exposure directly through mutual fund also. So it's a convenient option. Let us put it that way. It's a convenient option where you also get tax break. If you go directly to mutual funds, you don't get tax break unless you go into ALSS.
Right, right. And then investment happens to be exempted to an extent of 1,50,000, and even the maturity happens to be exempted. So it is more or less like a win-win situation for the person who's investing into ULIPs. So they happen to get the growth similar to a mutual fund. They happen to get the life cover to that of life insurance, and then tax benefits. And it is always a saying about life insurance that earlier you start, the smaller would be the premium, and as you grow, the premium also increases. So start as early as possible. So that was about insurance and ULIPs. We are coming to the most traditional and most liked investment option by our audience and by the population. That's PPF and EPF. So Kamraju sir, here is where we would seek your inputs when we talk about a PPF. So every time we say that we would like to make an investment, it's like I would like to invest entire 1,50,000 in PPF only to take the exemption of ETC. So would you think that it is a wise decision to put entire 1,50,000 in a PPF option, or would you suggest that only some proportion of it should go in PPF, and maybe a person can diversify? What would you suggest on that, sir?
Okay, so basically, if you ask me, the PPF and EPF, both are the comes under retirement prospect, and it is a comes under pension. It is comes under Pension and Gratuity Act. And PPF, Public Provident Fund, is basically you can open an account in either specific selected banks or selected post offices, and every year maximum 1,50,000 rupees you can invest per one PAN card. Earlier, the most of the people, they deposit PPF in name of children, in name of wife, and in name of stuff. But nowadays, it is a PPF account is linked with your PAN card, so that you cannot invest more than 1,50,000 per one each PAN card. That is one. And similarly, it is a 15 years locking period, and definitely it is a long-term plan. There no doubt. And whereas the EPF, it is a employee segment where we have the two type of the schemes. One is exempted and second is the unexempted. In most of the companies, I can say 80% of the companies all are the unexempted with their contribution, their portfolio managing by a regional provident fund commission, that is RPFC. And some companies they
Okay.
have the exempted, they have one trust, but the rates are governed by RPFC, so that is presently 8.5%. Coming to your question, what is the best between the EPF and VPF? If you have an option of the PF, then definitely PF is little better than PPF because it is 8.5% compared to 7.1%. And again, in the PPF, there is a liquidity in case there are some emergency like medical, marriage, house purchase, house reconstruction, repayment of our housing loan. There are the particular purposes are defined in the EPF, so that you will get the partial withdrawal from your PF and PF loan. You
Right.
can repay the your loan. So in that way, PF is a little better than PPF. That is my personal. And also some employees, companies, they are operating the voluntary provident fund because PF is a 12% mandate contribution from employee side and employer side. Other than 12%, still we have a 88% of the basic. Suppose your basic salary is 100 rupees, 12%, 12 rupees is going to PF contribution. Still we have a 88 rupees in your basic salary. If you want, you can contribute 88 rupees to your PF account, but ultimately you will
Okay.
get only 1,50,000 rupees under ATC. But employer can contribute only mandate 12%, but he will not contribute on the VPF contribution. VPF is only employee contribution. There's no contribution from the
Right.
employer. So these are the retirement benefits, very good, no doubt, and traditional investment pattern in the India.
Yes, absolutely. Traditional is the word which suits best for PF and EPF. Right, Deepak sir?
Yeah. Yeah. So here, Pratibha, I would like to add one or two things. One is that the EPF interest rate of 8.5% is a bit on the high side, going by the interest rates which is prevailing in the economy. So it is likely
Right.
to sort of fall gradually over time. Uh, Plus, for people who are already up the career curve, 40, 45, 50 years, for them, I think putting more and more money into VPF makes a lot of sense. Although
Hmm.
you may not get your tax benefit, but 7% tax free or 8.5%, which is the current amount, even if it falls to 7.5, 7.75 over time,
Hmm.
you don't
Hmm.
get that kind of a tax-free interest anywhere in the country at this point of time. The only
Right.
downside is the lock-in. So if you are 45, 50 and if your income is quite high, then you should look at increasing your VPF contribution, as Kamaraj also mentioned.
Right, sir. Right, sir. So in a nutshell, we can still look at making an investment in PF.
But
That
Pratibha,
would be, yeah.
one point, like you mentioned, don't expect this 8.5% in the future because even though for the last year, out of the 8.5%, due to cash deficit issues in the only 8.35% they allotted the interest, and remaining 0.15% interest they are going to credit in your account on or before 31st December. So that means
Okay.
it is a clear symptoms of the cash crunch in the PF corpus. So that's why my gut feeling, definitely there is a cut down in the PF rate shortly, and maybe another 1% in the next year. So of course, current year PF rate is at to announce, so we may expect be around 8 to 8.25%. So we may expect some cut.
Okay. Okay. Got that. So that was quite of an input, at least for the audience who are thinking of making an investment here, can consider this point also.
Yeah.
So coming to the superstar of the workshop, that's NPS, National Pension System. This makes me quite excited because this is one investment instrument which happens to be long term, and it actually gives you huge tax benefits which are actually over and above the standard limitation of 1,50,000 within ATC. It's not only a pocket friendly or economic tax saving tool, I would say, but also also something that gives you an exposure to equity and debt both. So ever since we have started this webinar, we have been seeing a mix of investment instruments which is either dedicated to equity or dedicated to debt. But this one is something that gives you an exposure to both. You have an option to invest in equity and debt at the same point in time. And it also gives you a decent returns over a period of time because it has a mixture of both equity and debts. So Deepak sir, as we talked that it gives you it allows you to invest 75% into equities and 25% into other asset classes. That's either corporate bonds or government bonds or alternative funds. So what would be your take when I say that it gives you a fantastic asset mix? And that too very flexible when we are talking about switching between funds. If I'm not happy with the equity, I can always switch to debt and vice versa.
Right. So if you are doing this on your own, you will be liable to capital gains tax. But if you are doing through NPS, there is no tax implication of shifting from equity to debt or debt to equity. So which is a very good feature of NPS. So now the flexibility in asset mix is welcome. Typically, people link this with your age. With growing age, they bring down the equity ratio and increase the debt ratio. It is not necessary that everyone should follow that, because if you are aggressive investors, you can still keep your equity exposure high with growing age. So flexibility is good. Return wise also, more or less the NPS funds have given returns which are matching with Nifty. They don't try to outperform because they want to protect your money or corpus. So there is no fund manager who takes extra risk to gain that alpha or on higher returns. But then this is what typically people want, returns in line with Nifty or Sensex, which these funds tend to provide. And in the corporate bond and government bond fund also, because of the falling interest rates, these options have also given good returns so far.
Right, sir. So I would say that this is where the showstopper comes when we are talking about NPS. So we all are aware now that we've been discussing for quite some time about various avenues of saving taxes and create wealth. We have only seen investment options within the limit of ATC to an extent of making an investment of rupees 1,50,000. But here we have NPS. If you see the first box, which is voluntary contribution. So if you are an NPS account holder, irrespective whether you are a corporate subscriber or an individual subscriber, you have a benefit of availing a tax benefit to an extent of 50,000, which is over and above your bucket of ATC. And then if you are a corporate subscriber, you have an additional headroom of making an investment in NPS, which will be a combination of your EPF plus NPS plus superannuation to an extent of 7,50,000. So why would NPS become a no-brainer investment? So Kamraju, so this is for you, wherein you can actually explain us more in detail when we talk about a corporate subscriber, when we talk about our corporate community. So they have this EPF which goes automatically, which gets deducted automatically. But if someone is making an additional investment of 10% of their basic, so that's where he gets an extra headroom to save some extra taxes.
Yeah. So basically, Pratibha, from financial year 2021 onwards, this condition implemented because employer cost. If employer cost is contributing more than 7.5 lakhs per employee per annum, then additional cost will be taxable in the hands of employee. What
Right,
are the employer contributions presently? Employer contribution could be one is PF, second is the NPS, third is your superannuation. So all these contributions cost is should be less than 7.5 lakhs.
Right.
Generally, these 7.5 lakhs applicable only top senior guys of corporates, not for every employee. So that is the condition, because otherwise earlier the lot of cost is investing more than contribution, where under section 43 we filing the income tax return, we are the allowable deductions. So to cut these deductions in the income tax return point of view, it is there is a capping put in the 7.5 lakhs. So that is the employer contribution warrant above 76. And coming to the NPS, of course, one point I would like to say, in the last couple of years, there is a lot of awareness created in the employees on the NPS. If you see in the beginning of the NPS, like around 4 years, 5 years back, in a company like 10,000 employees capacity, not more than 2 to 300 employees NPS contribute. But today, for the volume of the 10,000 capacity, I can see around 3 to 4,000 employees are contributing towards NPS. So that means the NPS awareness is very good in the present scenario, and the numbers are gradually growing. And also people are investing because every year, as a part of investment proof and process, I used to see most of the investments coming under NPS for 50,000 additional ATCCD 1.2, and we are getting a lot of encouragement in this one.
Right, sir.
And the fund managers,
Yes.
whether HDFC or your competitors, they are doing the good job in the every market. So that's why NPS is very charming. And even though recently most of the companies started the process as per the judgment in the Supreme Court, the superannuation also can be shifted to the
Yes.
NPS corpus. So most of the companies,
Right.
they are shifting the corpus from superannuation to this one, because superannuation is always LIC, and there is some traditional challenges where NPS comes. Obviously, the game between corporate to corporate, and any the very friendly process. So that's why most of the companies, they are in the transition of the shifting from the uh, superannuation to NPS. But there are some challenges. We need to take the approval from the CBDT. Once you take the
Yes. Yes.
approval from the CBDT, we need to communicate to all employees for their acceptance. Once every employee is accepted, then we can move the corpus from superannuation to your NPS. But there is some
NPS.
executional operational challenges. Otherwise, long-term point of view, it is very good in NPS. That is one input I want to share with you and Deepak.
Yes, sir. In fact, when we are talking about portability of superannuation to NPS, we also
Yeah.
see that the withdrawal or the liquidity in superannuation is barely 1/3 of the corpus value. Whereas in NPS, the maturity that you can withdraw, that is 60%, which is lump sum and exempted. So
Yeah.
that's where it creates a very huge difference between both the investment options. Plus, as we are already seeing it on our screen, that NPS gives you tax benefits over and above the bucket of ATC.
Yeah.
Whereas superannuation investment consists is within the bucket of ATC, within the limit
Yeah.
of 1,50,000. So
Yeah.
now that we've been investing about so many investment options, not sure if superannuation is still going to fit in.
Yeah.
So the best option which is available or which is given to the employee, which already has a superannuation trust, is that he ports a superannuation fund to NPS, which
Yeah.
gives him a higher return, which gives him a higher liquidity, and which gives him a higher tax benefits.
Yeah. And also, Pratibha, in the NPS, there is one beauty. If you compare with the PPF also under Section ATC, you can invest up to 1,50,000 in the post office or any nationalized bank. Whereas you cannot invest 1 rupee more than 1,50,000, but whereas in NPS you can invest more than 1,50,000. Of course, tax exemption you will get a 1,50,000, but you can invest more as a saving point of view. That is the one plus point in the NPS when you're comparing with the PPF. Also, the returns definitely there no compare. PPF versus NPS always there, and
Yes.
And at the time of liquidity, you will get both pension and accumulation serve in the NPS. So these are the some plus points compared to present schemes. So that's why most of the people are attracting and coming to the NPS portfolios. So that is
Absolutely right.
my
Absolutely right.
personal feeling. Yes.
Yes. So probably, that's the reason, Deepak sir, we call NPS to be a no-brainer at all. It gives you a tax benefit over and above 80C to an extent of 50,000. That becomes an investment on 2 lakh rupees. Plus, it gives you a tax benefit on 7,50,000 on your corporate contribution. So why not people invest in NPS and take maximum advantage of it? So they can actually have NPS as a very integral component of their investment portfolio and financial planning.
Yeah. Yeah, and one more point, Deepak, maybe you can answer this question. Most of the people are thinking, in case if I invest in NPS, I will get only 60% or 70% as a lump sum. Remaining 40%, I will get only pension till my end of the life, something like that, maybe 5 to 10, 15 years. If in case if 100% if I get corpus at the time of my retirement in an NPS, and most of the people are feeling this concern. How can we address this concern to the employees? Because the people are looking 100% return from the NPS at the time of retirement instead of 60%. So what is the answer you can give it to audience?
So here the question is what is a pension? Pension is supposed to support the retired person in their post employment period. Now, in case you are allowed to withdraw 100% on your retirement or attaining 60 years, then there is no control as to what you will spend it on.
Yeah.
And you will still be left with the same situation. You will be still dependent on your children or on your other relatives for your sustenance. There is a possibility. So to avoid that kind of a possibility, this restriction of 60% has been kept, and which is fair, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So there is no need to sort of relax that. Plus, government was anyway moving away from EEE. So in case you are allowing 100% withdrawal, then even in NPS, it would be EEE, which so far the government is not in a frame of mind to allow. So once they make up their mind as to whether they want to equate NPS with VPF or PPF or EPF, then probably that question can arise. But if 100% is not tax free at the time of 60 years, then people are not going to withdraw that even if it is allowed. So there are two interrelated questions. At this point of time, I think it is fair to continue with the 60% so that your 40% will support you in your post-retirement period.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, to ensure that you continue to be financially independent.
Yeah, pension. But basically, the name itself is pension. So there definitely we need to make. Yeah. Thank you, Deepak.
Yeah, so here HDFC Securities, if some of you don't know about us, we are a subsidiary of HDFC Bank. We have a platform, investing platform, where a lot of products you can invest on your own. Most of the products are available for online investment, so it is very convenient, very easy. Single click or maybe one or two or three clicks, you are done. So in case you have not visited our website, please do visit. And we are one of the largest brokers in the country and a subsidiary of banks. So in that sense, from a trust perspective or from a professional approach perspective, there is nothing to worry about. Plus, we are quite competent in offering a lot of other value-added services, including research. For example, in NPS, we have a monthly report coming out which lists out the returns that are generated by all the fund managers under various categories. This is just one example which I just mentioned. There are various other research services under equity, mutual fund, debt, etc., etc. So please visit our website in case you are not already a subscriber or a customer of HDFC Securities. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. And with that, we come to take up the questions. We see that there are lots of questions from the audience. So I would request you to pick up a few of them and maybe we can answer them and clarify their doubts here.
Yeah, Mr. Kamaraju, can you go ahead?
Yeah, just let me open the questions.
Yes.
Yes, the question I can see, will we get the slides being presented? I think Pratibha, there is one question.
Yes, sir.
People are want the presentation. Maybe you can,
Yes.
sir, you can take a internal call. Are you going to circulate this presentation slide to everyone or not? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As a practice, whenever we conduct such webinars, we share
Okay.
across the presentation with the audience over the email. So once
Okay.
when the webinar will be over, around 1:30, 2 o'clock, the audience will already have an email in their inbox with the presentation
Okay. Great.
and the recording link of this webinar. So in
Oh,
case if
great.
they want to watch it again, they can access through the link.
And there
So
will be one query on medical insurance policy. Once employee shift the job, the new company employer doesn't have the medical insurance. Can the top-up policy taken by the employer becomes base policy? Yes, definitely. So basically, the question like Deepak mentioned, top-up is always required when you are working in any company, because when you are joining in another company, there is no policy. Then is this top-up policy useful for you as a base policy in this new company? Yes, that is yeah, agreed. I think I answered the question.
Deepak sir, I have one question for you here. Mansa Ramesh is asking, instead of ULIP, many advise to take separate term insurance and ELSs. What would you advise? Sir, we can't hear you.
Yeah. So that is what I mentioned some time back, that some people are looking at an option of investing in term plan plus equity or term plan plus ELSs instead of ULIP. But for that, you will have to sort of have the time and the skill set to first shortlist the ELSs and to make payments separately for term plan as well as for ELS schemes. Otherwise, this is an option worth considering for most people, because
Right, sir.
saves you a lot. It saves you a lot of expenses, which the ULIP companies charge, the LIC companies charge. But for that, there is a time and effort and skill devotion that is required.
And there is one question from
Right.
Mr. Malai Baumik. When the entire EPF investment can be withdrawn? So as per the present PF rules and regulations, EPF can be withdrawn at the time of retirement or no employment only. So during the employment, you can withdraw subject to parameters. Only 5 purposes. One is medical emergency, marriage, third is house construction, fourth education, and last one is the repayment of the home loan. These are the 5 scenarios, you can withdraw the PF. Otherwise, you need to wait till end of the retirement. That is answer for Malay Bomik.
Kamaraju sir, I have a question for you here from Mr. Abhipreet Mishra. He says, as per my calculation, anyone who is saving ATC and other revenues and fall in 30% tax slab, should they stick to old tax regime?
Okay. So basically, as I mentioned, Pratibha, there are a lot of external factors involved to compare whether old or new is best. We cannot say ATC on only on the basis of ATC, because other than ATC, we need to consider like medical policies, housing rent, in case of our own house or rental house. Do we have any self-occupied property, let-out property? Similarly, you have any educational burden for your children or your spouse or yourself. So these are a lot of the parameters we need to consider. So need a detailed discussion, but there's no straight and simple answer for this. We need to compare a lot of factors.
Right.
Okay.
So we have a very. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
That's it, my side. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we have a very interesting question from Matthias here. He's asking, LTA voucher benefit allows purchase of term insurance plan for self and dependents. Can employees submit these proofs to claim tax exemption under ATC and also under LTC if the three basic criterias are met?
Okay. So Pratibha, basically I mentioned this is not from this Abhishek point. There are a lot of employees are asking the same question, like this LTC cash voucher can spend on the LIC policies, ULIP policies, or similarly any car leased accommodation. So there are a lot of questions, but ultimately right now there is no answer because the Gazette is not yet notified. We are waiting for the notification. We are waiting for the detailed CBDT, Central Board of the Direct Taxes amendment. So once it is published, then only we can answer. But right now it is a press note, no comments.
Okay. Okay, sir.
We are waiting for the lot of clarification in the notification. So that's why most of the companies are not yet implemented this LTC cash voucher.
Okay. Okay. So Deepak sir, I have one question for you here. Ms. Sridevi Sundararajan is asking, would you like to give any suggestions for child education savings? I think this is going to be a long-term investment. So what would you recommend here, sir?
So for child education, typically the large payouts happen when the child is between 17 to 22 or 23 years old. Of course, nowadays even the kindergarten studies are getting more and more expensive. So, but let us keep that aside. The big spends typically happen between the time of between the age of 15, 16 to 22, 23 for higher education, for going abroad or such like. So you will have to make a financial goal based on that, so that at that point of time, what is the course that you want your children to undergo? What is the current cost? What is the expected inflation in that cost? Make a calculation of that, and you will get a corpus which you will need in that time period. So if you want to achieve that kind of a corpus at that time period, what is the amount that you should be investing now or on a regular basis with an expected annual return? So if you are investing in, say, equities, then you can expect a return of anywhere between 9 to 11 or 12% per annum. If you are investing in debt, then probably 6 to 8% is a better norm to expect. So that is the way you can probably build up a corpus for education for your children.
Right, so I hope Sridevi, your query is addressed here. We'll take a last couple of questions here before we
Pratibha, there are some questions on NPS. So why don't you straight away deal with them now? For example, is it advisable for a 46-year-old person to open an NPS account?
Absolutely, yes, sir. Any person between age of 18 years to 65 years can invest in NPS. It's never too late to start investing in this particular investment option because eventually it actually helps you in making a retirement corpus for yourself. So even if you are at the age of 42, 46, or 48, or anything to an extent of 65 years, you can always start investing in NPS.
Yeah. One more question is, if a person dies after 61 years, then what happens to the corpus for
Right. So
NPS?
if a person has already started taking his or her pension, they have taken a maturity at the age of 60 years. So whosoever is the spouse or the legal heir will continue to get the payouts as per the pension plan which was selected by the subscriber. So in case the subscriber passes away, the pension will continue or discontinue depending on the pension plan which he had purchased at the time of maturity. So the payouts would continue. In most of the cases, payouts continue to the spouse.
After the spouse dies, then
So after the spouse dies, there are some 13 different pension plans which are authorized by the regulator. A few of them, there is nothing that comes back, a few of pension plans. And then there are also a few other pension plans wherein there is a return of the purchase price. So say for example, my corpus at the age of 60 on maturity is 10 lakhs. I take the withdrawal of 60%, which is 6 lakhs. Remaining 40%, which is 4 lakhs, is invested for purchase of an annuity plan. So the pension continues for my spouse, and there is also a return of purchase price, which is 4 lakhs, which comes back to my spouse. Once when my spouse passes away, there is nothing which comes back any further. So there are
there is a
several
question.
variants. Yes, sir.
Question is partial withdrawal allowed in NPS scheme before the lock-in period?
Yes, partial withdrawals are allowed after completion of 3 years. So if you have completed 3 years of your journey in NPS, you are allowed to withdraw 25% of the voluntary contribution that you have made. So there are two types of contributions. One is the employer contribution and one is a voluntary contribution, that the investment which you are making in an individual capacity. So you are allowed to withdraw that 25% from the voluntary contribution 3 times after completion of 3 years. So you can withdraw 25%, 25%, 25% 3 times, and this partial withdrawal is exempted. It is tax free, and it is associated to several terms and conditions. Now these terms and conditions are very similar to that of a PPF or a EPF, like higher education or marriage of children, purchase or renovation of house, critical illness including COVID-19, having your new venture or starting up a new business, or any other self-development skills for yourself. So these are several terms and conditions you need to provide with the proofs, and you can go ahead with the partial withdrawals.
Yeah. One more question is, I have NPS account with HDFC, previous employer Bosch, opted active choice 50 equity to 40 bond. Can I change percentage of equity to 75%?
Yes, absolutely. You can change, you can switch between your investments and asset classes twice in a financial year. You can change your asset allocation from 50 to 75 or vice versa. Equities, you cannot exceed 25% of investment, 75% of investment, 75% happens to be the highest most, but you can always change it twice in a financial year.
Yeah. And how many times in a year can anyone invest in NPS for individual investments?
There is no upper limit in making investments in NPS. You can make unlimited credits in your account. It can be monthly contribution, yearly, half yearly, quarterly contributions. There is no upper limit in making investments. However, the tax benefits are having several limits within several sections, as we have explained earlier. So there is no upper cap in making investments.
60% withdrawal on retirement, is it mandatory or you can continue there?
Yeah, it is not a mandatory withdrawal. 60% is optional. If you want, you can invest entire 100% of your corpus into purchase of an annuity plan that will actually help you in increasing your monthly pension.
Raju, do you have any other questions in mind?
Nothing. I think I can see a couple of questions like related to tax pattern. So I think Pratibha, maybe why can't you select the questions and answer? Maybe I can
Sure,
send me
sir.
the questions. I can answer. I can give you the reply. Maybe you can send it. Like people are asking, what is the due date for the tax filing return for the 1920? So that is the December 31st is due date previously announced. Similarly, couple of questions. So maybe you can file list down and give it to me so that we can answer.
Yes.
Okay?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because
I'll
since we are
share
already
across the
over time.
questions.
Yeah.
Yes. We are we have quite taken it far. We have got still many questions. So what we can
Yes.
do is we can reply to you over email if any questions are left out, which we could not take at the time of webinar. So we will take it up offline and we will reply to you over email.
Perfect. Perfect, Pratibha. Perfect.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Kamraju. Thank you so much for your time and joining in and giving this insightful session on tax hacks. And thank you so much, Deepak sir, for taking out time and joining in and giving us all your best inputs. And thank you so much, audience, for being so patient and asking us your queries. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend and see you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a good day.